And good afternoon to everyone. And thank you so very much, Raven, for that introduction and welcome. My name is James Mack. I'm your man on the street. This is a inaugural show. I'm first of all like to thank our radio family for allowing us to have this opportunity to come into your homes or wherever you might be and taking a listen to WKRA 92.7 FM. And we're brand new on the block. We just wanted to get an opportunity to come and to share with you current events and to also leave some inspiration and wonderful information. And today I have a wonderful guest that will be joining us for our discussion on these 34 counts that the former president of the United States, and this has never happened in the history of our country, that we have had a sitting or a ex-president convicted of any crime, more or less to say a felony. And we're going to talk about it. We're going to dissect our information, and we're going to be also taking some comments from you as we have just begun this journey, and we're asking that you go along with this journey. At this time, I'd like to introduce our guest at this time, if she's ready. This person has a wonderful following also on social media and other platforms, Wisdom's daughter. Hey, Wisdom.
Hi, James. How are you? Thanks for having
Well,
me
this is
on.
wonderful. Well, thank you very much for being a part of this great broadcast that we're going to be having. Just giving a little information to people about what's going on. And it was uh, on Thursday that the counts were announced and that the verdict was read. And sometimes often we ask ourselves, where were we? Where were you when Donald Trump got convicted? Where were you? And anything close to this, and to my knowledge, that has ever gotten this close when Richard Nixon, back in the Watergate days in the 70s, came real close to being indicted. And we never knew if he would be convicted because he got a pardon from Gerald Ford, who was at that time going to be president with the resignation. But this is something, Wisdom. I mean, it's quite amazing to see history up close and personal, like we have the technology and the different things. What do you think about when you heard about it?
I had mixed feelings about it, to be honest with you. I would say my first question was, is this really a win? Or is it too early to celebrate? Because,
Yeah,
one of one of the things we know is that a guilty verdict doesn't necessarily equate to a conviction, or not a conviction, but doesn't necessarily equate to jail time. And so this is Donald Trump that we're talking about.
right.
He's a little slippery, and he's known for being able to weasel his way, out of things. And the fact of the matter is, what does this mean for our future? Does this mean that he'll still be able to run for president? Does this mean that he will potentially still be able to win an election? We're talking about 34
Yeah,
felony counts here. So I'm kind of a little bit on the fence. I am celebrating the fact that we did get a guilty verdict, because that's a start, right? But yeah,
yes,
I do have some
yeah,
mixed feelings. And the other thing to remember too is that this is just one case. This is just the case dealing
yes,
with the with falsifying business records relating to that payment that he made to the adult film star Stormy Daniels, right
yeah,
before the 2016 election, to keep her quiet about the affair. Remember, he had outed Hillary Clinton with the emails
yeah,
and all these other things. And so, the hush money, but there are other things on the table that haven't yet come out, but so close to the next electoral year. My question is, what does this mean for our future? Is Donald Trump gonna serve any real jail time? And I don't know. I'm on the fence. I'm on the fence.
Well, if when the penalty, especially, well, yes, it's one. You can consider the charge as being one, but within those charges, I guess that's where they got the 34 counts that they've totaled. And according to the New York Attorney General from Manhattan, um, the penalties that the judge can look at is probation, house arrest, and he can get up to 4 years, and I'm pretty sure it will be ran consecutively. Um, he just won't get four for each of those charges. He wouldn't have to serve 4 years separately. They're going to run it concurrent. But we don't know what's going to happen. There's a possibility that there will be an appeal, and that it might take some time. But the judge has set sentencing for sometime early. I think it's June the 11th, if I'm not mistaken, or July 11th.
I think it's July 11th. I'm actually
July.
looking at an article on ABC News titled "Half Americans Think Trump's Guilty Verdict Was Correct and this should end his campaign poll." And overall, 50% of people said or agreed that the verdict was correct. 49% people said that Trump should end the campaign, that he should not be able to run. It says a plurality of Americans, 50%, think the former President Donald Trump's guilty verdict on all 34 counts in his hush money trial was correct. And just about as many think that this should end his 2024 presidential campaign. He should not be allowed to run for president. Seems to be kind of like the feelings on the street, I'll say. And I agree with that. What are your thoughts? Should Donald Trump still be allowed to run?
That's a good question for everybody to ponder. And I was looking at the law in the state of Mississippi, where our station is based. And according to the Secretary of State, the person that runs the actual election, if Donald Trump is and his conviction stands, barring any appeals that they have, he can actually run in the state of Mississippi because his crime is not listed as one of those felony crimes. But there's also another loophole inside of that no matter where his conviction was, if he was convicted of a crime that added up, he would have gotten possible prison term of a year or more, he could be disqualified. So within this state, the Republican Party is the majority party in the state house in both of the houses of the legislature, and the governor also is a Republican. So there's been a lot of reaction out of Mississippi from our federal and our local officials, and it's just interesting how, as observing and watching this case, that I thought that we wouldn't get to this far, but it just was amazing to see that. I thought maybe he'd get one count or maybe two, but they found him guilty on all of those. Could you imagine? What do you think the jury was thinking when making this decision? I mean, this was on their shoulders, and they had this great decision to make like this. Imagine how they were. What do you think about that?
I mean, it's certainly not a surprise. I mean, I would say that in the state of New York, I don't believe that Donald Trump is as popular as he might be in other states. So I don't necessarily feel that it was that difficult for a jury to find him guilty on all 34 counts. It's just that, this is very politically charged. I know that New York State definitely had intentions of not letting him get by this time. Because as we know, Trump has been very good with getting away with things because they were unprecedented, right? And so my opinion, I don't think it was necessarily that difficult of the task. I just don't think a lot of people, I think there was a surprise. Like, wow, is he actually, I don't think we ever thought we would get here, I guess is what it is. Like, just as you said, this is a historical moment, and is he actually, being convicted of something finally, right? So and it goes back.
Well, maybe this is Did I lose you?
No, I hear you. I'm still with you. I'm still tracking.
Oh, okay. Okay. There was some dead time right there. And, it's just so interesting. And I don't know if I could have took that pressure of sitting in a courtroom. I mean, this was 5 weeks of this. And the surprising thing and we're going to get into the crust of what they're saying that they've convicted him of, when the jury, who was selected by both the defense and for the prosecution, they picked the jury, and the jury did a great job. I don't know how I would have done it. It would have been impossible almost, because everybody has their opinions. But I mean, imagine that pressure that was upon them to fairly give the former president, an opportunity to have a defense. He did not lodge a defense from my standpoint, because I think the defense only called one witness out of all of the tens of witnesses that the prosecution called. That was amazing, and to finally face Miss Stormy Daniels face to face after all of those years. What do you think about that? What reaction do you think it would have been? I mean, here she is walking in front of the person that she had relations with, got paid by, but it's been such great news that she had to come and face the person being accused. What do you think about that from a woman's standpoint? I mean, I know that she's a worker of another kind.
I think, like many people out there, there's this thought that maybe he was going to get away with it. I think Trump also was quite surprised. I thought he may have also thought that he was going to get away with what he did. I mean, he's Donald Trump after all. I would say that it was definitely a win for Stormy Daniels, and I imagine that in some cases of the word, she may have felt vindicated. But I imagine that there was an element of surprise, just like, wow, like we actually accomplished what we intended to, because this has been going on you're talking about since 2016. So here we are in 2024,
yes,
and this man is finally, being, he was found guilty. He was found guilty on all 34 counts. So again, I'm sure there was a lot of celebrating out there in the streets, and there are those who are kind of wondering again, what does this mean for the future? And as I said earlier, will Trump do any time? And then the other question goes back to, should he be allowed to run? I'm going to tell you a little bit about my thoughts on that. I actually found a document. This is Donald Trump's project plan. This is what he intends to implement in 2025. It's a 900 and some odd page document. I'm going to tell you, I did not read through the entire document, but MSNBC, Joy Reid, they kind of did like a little bit of a summary. And here are some of the things to consider when we think about, should he be allowed to run again? And if he does run in the election, is this someone that we want to elect a second time, given the first experience? So some of the things that he's looking to do is to, and again, this is coming from MSNBC, is to enact mass layoffs of civil servants. And he would enlist Trump loyalists to replace those civil servants. So you're talking about all your city workers. You're talking about your local government, your state government, your federal government. He wants to terminate the Constitution. He wants to politicize DOJ to investigate political adversaries. He also has a plan for mass deportations of migrants. He wants to bomb Mexico.
He wants that. I mean, you think about the outrageous. He's outrageous.
He wants to bomb Mexico. I mean, you can't make this up. He wants to shoot immigrants. His plan is to electrify the wall and, get this, to build a border moat around the U.S. border and fill it with snakes and alligators. I mean, this is absolutely outrageous, but this is documented in his plan. He also wants to reinstate and expand a ban of people from Muslim majority countries, to impose ideological screening of immigrants. He would revoke student visas and birthright citizenship. Things like withdraw from NATO, punish hospitals that provide transgender care. I mean, this is.
In essence, he's trying to destroy the social fabric of this country, and those gains that we have, even in civil in civil rights or rights period. It looks like there's going to be some restrictions of some people And I'm not saying that in a color fashion, but I'm thinking that, here you have civil servants, people that have and that are serving our government, whether it's at the Social Security offices, State Department, and every department in the United States government. And then you want to replace them with loyalists that are loyal to your ideology or loyal to you to a fault as being one of your supporters, which is not true. Everybody has their opinion to either be for or against any political candidate or any political kind of person that's from a different party. But from an American standpoint, as being an American, I mean, I would not want the person representing me in whether a Republican or Democrat to represent me in that shape, form, or fashion, because you're literally trying to tear apart the fabric and the foundations that have been built in this country.
Absolutely. And we saw what his loyalists did. I mean, his loyalists stormed the Capitol.
Oh
People got
yeah,
hurt. Officers were hurt. People were afraid. There are still people that have PTSD over this. And
yes,
these are the type of people that he's looking to employ in the place of civil servants, which means he is looking to uproot. You're talking about, I don't know how many civil servants we actually have in this country, but
yeah,
you could potentially be talking about millions of people. And
yes,
the other thing to consider, and you kind of touched on it, is that it sounds like he's looking to take us from a democracy to an autocracy. It sounds like, and it's no secret that Trump has a desire to be kind of somewhat of a dictator, very much like
yes.
Russia and some of these other countries that he admires. And so these are some of the things to think about when we're talking about electing our next president. There is no perfect person, no perfect president, but you're talking about someone who says that as a part of his presidential campaign, that he wants to, his plan would
Yeah.
be to bomb a whole other country. I mean, it's comical. It's kind of like a funny, not funny. And that's just the
But it's
tip
scary.
of.
Yeah, it's scary on top of it. It's scary.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the thing is, he wants to completely uproot the Constitution, that very Constitution that put him in office. So it's kind of ironic. It's a little hypocritical, but and just reading some of these
Mhm.
things, it really makes you almost afraid about the future of our country. And it makes you wonder if some of these things are going to be taken into account when he is sentenced on July 11th. And it's just one of those things. I mean, we have 11 million undocumented people in the United States. They're being held in
Yeah.
camps along the southern border. They're being deported. And it Trump has not been shy about his feelings towards these people. He vows to crack down and again, this is coming from MSNBC, quote unquote, anti-white feeling, and just to completely eradicate them almost from this country, and utilizing weapons if it calls for that. An electrified fence, that is
Wow.
that
Well,
it's
what do you?
mind
What, I mean,
blowing, to say the least.
can you imagine? Can you imagine? And I don't know if you have a recollection of this. Remember the Berlin Wall when
Yes.
Mikhail Gorbachev of Russia, the USSR, before they changed over to the Russian Federation, and our president at that time, which was Ronald Reagan. They say the last of the great Republicans. I don't know. That Ronald Reagan and Gorbachev got together and they had to come up with something because Russia was in such despair, and communism as we know it and have known it with the separation and the wall in Berlin. When that wall came down, imagine here. Now it wasn't, and going back to what I said, it wasn't uh, it doesn't matter what party you're from, as long as that president, that person that's in office is representing and protecting the citizens of the United States. When foreign policy came in and said, well, hey, we got to do away with this wall, years later and decades later, you have a man that was charged and have taken an oath to do the same, and he's recreating not on any other soil but right on our soil with Mexico, that have truly have been partners. uh people have been partners over the years, because if you look around, there's a Hispanic American community in all places. We find our citizens that are of Hispanic nature that are doing several jobs and several duties that some would not do. And
Absolutely.
it's amazing how we would treat our country like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Let
And
Donald
it's
Trump tell
painful.
it, because he said it before. He almost it almost feels like he wants to perpetuate this narrative that all immigrants are criminals and they're gangbangers, especially specifically those coming from Mexican countries. When
Yeah.
he comes from immigrants, which is really really
But
interesting that he actually comes
his
from.
wife is an immigrant. Her
Exactly,
parents were immigrants,
exactly.
and what I couldn't understand is you would let certain, or you're developing again. I'm not saying it's racism, but it's some kind of ism when you select the people that you want to come in. Not only did he marry someone of a foreign descent, but he, as president, allowed her parents to become U.S. citizens. I don't know whether they went to any classes or they required, or was it just done by executive order? I don't know the process, but I thought that the process would be. I hadn't heard of the former first lady's family going through any kind of certification whatsoever.
I'm
So
sure they
I can't
didn't.
speak on that, but yeah, okay. I didn't want. I want to give him some credit. Maybe he didn't take
I
the
mean,
shortcut way.
yeah, I mean, if we look at his history and how he's done things, Donald Trump doesn't really strike you as the by the book kind of person. He kind of strikes you
Mhm.
as the kind of make his own rules as he goes kind of person. And
Yes.
interestingly enough, the very laws that allowed his wife to come into this country and to be a citizen, and also his family, he's trying
Yes.
to undo those very laws. Which means that if it
Yes.
happens to not work out with this wife and he decides to get, to marry someone else potentially from another
With this
country,
one.
right, it might make, well, we know that he does have a
Yes.
history. He has
Well,
a
I'm not
history there,
laughing
but
because he got two wives or anything, but he has a history of mixing it up a little bit, and they say he was such a ladies' man and so forth. But listen, we just going to pause right quick for station identification. You're listening to WKRA 92.7 FM on your dial. This is the Man on the Street uh, broadcast with James Mack, and my wonderful, wonderful guest today that's sharing with us is the Wisdom Daughter, and we're getting and delving into this the aftermath, as I really wanted to say, of this 34 count indictment of the former president of the United States. We do have some commenters some people that are going to come in a little bit later, and we just wanted to also just give a shout outs to all our listeners and those that will be listening. This is our inaugural show, and we're hoping for the opportunity to continue. Let's bring up our guest anyway, right quick. Wisdom, bring our guest in, and we're going to go further. Come on.
sure. So we actually have Bernadette Bedford, who's going to be sharing some of her thoughts from the street.
All right. All right.
Bernadette,
Well,
you're
welcome.
live.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome. Welcome to the Man on the Street show.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Okay,
So,
wonderful, wonderful.
I live in New York City, the same city the convicted felon Donald J. Trump grew up in. And many people are not aware, but his father was a member of the Ku Klux Klan. And as we know, the Ku Klux Klan and other white supremacists were responsible for lynching under
Mm-hmm.
3.5 thousand Black people between 1882 and 1968.
Wow.
However, we know that today, lynching is more commonly associated with racial oppression,
Yes.
prejudice, advantages, and limitation, inequality. And presently, they're talking about eliminating DEI, which is diversity, equality, and inclusion, another form of oppression. And this is happening today in our schools, on our jobs, in housing. The convicted felon, Donald J. Trump, he's a racist.
Okay.
The apple does not fall far from the tree.
So do you think that I'm just going to ask, and I'm going to ask Wisdom to take the lead on this. It's a question that I have for you. Knowing what you know about the former president's past in New York City, do you think that he was fairly treated by the jury and by the courts?
Absolutely. A lot of people are not aware. This is not his first involvement with the courts. There were several civil suits that was against him in New York City, in New York State. Our Attorney General, Tish James, was able to successfully cause him to have to pay fines due to fraud. He's supposed to be a big businessman, but he's filed Chapter 11, Chapter 9 several times. He's a fraud. He's a fraud.
I have heard that he has some business practices of hiring people to do work and then not paying them, not paying his workers.
Exactly. So, and then there was a suit against him by E. Jean Carroll, who he sexually assaulted. And as a result of that, he has to pay her almost $90 million. Our district attorney won a case against the Trump organization for mishandling monies in their Trump foundation, which he got shut down. So
wow.
The courts in New York State are functioning accordingly.
I hear your accent. You got that East Coast accent too.
Oh, yes. I'm
Okay.
a native New Yorker. Love New York. Donald J. Trump is he might get away with not having to face a prison. However,
Right.
the fact that he is a convicted felon, he will live with that for the rest of his life. And how we could convict him is to go out there and vote. I'm concerned because a lot of us, Black and brown and others, have amnesia. They forget how this man was when he was the president. Over 1 million people died from his mishandling of the COVID virus. People were food insecure. There were food lines all over the place. People lost jobs. They lost apartments. They lost homes. The economy hit rock bottom. And a lot of people are giving him credit for a stimulus check.
Yeah, I've heard that. You know, you actually bring up a good point, because what you're highlighting is how do we measure and determine the kind of president that we're looking for? When we look at a person's character, we look at their integrity, we look at their business practices, we look at how they handle incidents, as you said, like what happened with the pandemic. We have to say pandemic. And and looking at with what happened with the White House and inciting people. Is this the type of person that we want in office to represent us? Is Donald Trump representing the character of who we want to elect as a president? Because the president is seen as kind of like the example for all. And is he the kind of man? I will tell you this: I wouldn't want Donald Trump as a husband, let alone as a friend. Certainly not necessarily as a president with his history. So
well, he said he has a lot of money, and he'll look out for you and put you in diamonds.
He didn't
No.
show his receipts, right? That's what we say on the YouTube streets. We want to see receipts, so we don't really know how much money he has. And as Bernadette said, he has filed for Chapter 11 and Chapter 9, and so we don't know how much money he really has. He had to get a special
So
kind of bond. Mm-hmm.
yes. So
Go
wisdom,
ahead,
I
James.
want to and I want to add on to this with you and Bernadette. Looking at somewhere went wrong, and I may have my opinion about any candidate, but something to me, even with this past that this man had, and I was reading and doing my research about the civil matters that he had, even with his property, him and his father, with discrimination of not just, I guess, of poor people, and poor, as they say, or whatever the class is, has no color, but him being the type of businessman that he is, and the businesses that he did, like in the city, and dealing with the boxing commission, trying to buy uh, Mike Tyson, and all those shady things that were going on. And this man was elected president. And I'm not just harping on this. This is an historic event, because no sitting or former president has ever had these kind of charges coming against them, and not just charges, but being actually convicted.
Exactly.
James, I just wanted to add something to what you stated earlier. Although they called the trial the hush money trial, that was a cover up. If you think back in October of 2016, there was a video release called from Access Hollywood, where Donald Trump verbalized that he could sexually assault women at free will because of who he is. And right after that, that's when the Stormy Daniel threatened to publicize his affair with her, his sexual encounter with her. So they paid her off to keep her quiet, because he knew after the Access Hollywood tape came out that if this came out on top of that, along with McDougal, who was a Playboy bunny who he had an affair with for almost a year, if all of that had come out after the Access Hollywood tape, Trump feared that he would not win the election. He would be doomed. Remember, he was doomed after the Access Hollywood tape came out. A lot of Republicans stated they were not going to support him. So that's why they call it the hush money, because he conspired one crime to hide another crime, and that's why he was convicted.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. As much as we can say bad things about Trump, and Bernadette, I think you need to turn the volume down on your TV or your radio. But as much as we can say bad things about Trump, we can see that he often does lead in the polls and popularity. And I think a lot of that is due to the fact that he is seen as this emblem of a rags to riches story, right? We know that his father and his grandfather came to this country with nothing. They built themselves up. And I think with in certain states, especially in rural areas where you do have a large rural white poor community, they look at him as someone to look up to. They look at him as someone that, if Donald Trump can do it, maybe I can do it. And so to some people, there is an appeal there. My thoughts are, if we were to take Donald Trump's resume, so to speak, all the things that he's done, and bundle that with Joe Biden. Let's say we took Donald Trump's resume and put it on Joe Biden and said Joe Biden, has an open case for it's not alleged because he was found guilty, but paying off Stormy Daniels to keep quiet, that he is known to have SA'd women, that he's known to have said in public that he can get away with it because of who he is, that he has business practices that are not good, fraudulent business practices, that he incited a mob of people to storm the Capitol. And I could go on and on and on and on. This is the same person that during Hurricane Maria was talking about Puerto Rico. And if you guys remember, he actually was throwing paper towels into the audience and not, it that
Yeah.
image in my head bothers me so much because it was just so. I could see where he was kind of looking down. And this is the same man who said that Puerto Rico is surrounded by water. Big water. Do you guys remember that as he's
Yeah,
describing Puerto
yeah,
Rico?
yes.
Right. And so, this is who we're talking about. If that was Biden or if that was someone else, is this someone we would want to elect president? Because at the end of the day, there is a possibility he may be allowed to run and then a decision has to be made. And when we make that decision, we've got to ask ourselves, is this the type of person that we would want as our president? Does Donald Trump represent you, your core values?
Well,
You
I feel that if there are people that are really supporting him, Wisdom and Bernadette, and you'll be surprised if I wanted to put this to read an official response we got from the governor's office of the state of Mississippi, and this guy is a Republican, and he is a Trump supporter. Governor Tate Reeves' office commented just recently, and I recently obtained this, who twice endorsed Mr. Trump on social media. He says that the lawless conviction of President Donald Trump only reflects the desperation of President Biden and the corrupt methods he will use to steal this election. Now, there he goes with that, talking about the election. There are a lot of Republicans and a lot of people that have, the supporters of the former president, not all Republicans, but the vast majority of his mega supporters, or those people that support him, really do feel that this past election was stolen. And this is where all of the goods come in at. I mean, the big lie, as they say that it is. And after fact checking and sitting down and analyzing things, we see that, hey, this thing started when he came down that golden escalator, Bernadette, in your humble city, and said, I'm running for president. I'm doing this, after all that he's done in the state of New York, and it spread it like wildfire. Ladies, just what's your reflection on what the governor says, that this was the type of lawless conviction and of the person that he calls President Trump, and he said that Mr. Biden is behind it. What do you think about that?
Well, there's a lot of misinformation that is out there, not only on social media and other means, and not only in this country, but you have other dictators like Putin from Russia, and you have now, the North Korea leader. You have other dictators. They are all supporting Donald Trump. If you remember, when Donald Trump was president, he did go to Russia and he met with Putin for over 2 hours. Putin was giving him instructions, teaching him how to develop autocratic society. So, and then you have all of these Republicans that they know better. Many of them are lawyers. They know that the process was fair, but they support their leader, and people are saying it's a cult now. This is like a cult. The Republican Party is like a cult, and you can tell with those who went to the court dressed in blue suits, dressed alike with bright red ties.
Interesting.
Even majority speaker in Congress. Now you have 2 Supreme Court justices who are partial, who are part of this cult. In one case, the wife is, Clarence Thomas's wife has been identified as being there on January 6th. Did she participate in the resurrection? No, but she was at the rally.
The insurrection. Yeah, you touched upon something. When it seems like when Donald Trump doesn't get his way, it's everything is rigged, right? When he doesn't get his way and when things don't go the way that he wants, it's rigged. And that seems to be kind of his argument for everything. Everything is rigged. I agree. I think he did have a fair trial. I don't think it was rigged. I don't think anything was done unfairly. I think, as James said, he had an opportunity to present his evidence, to call a witness. I believe I read that he only called one witness, and that's on them. I believe in his arrogance. He didn't feel that he needed a defense. He didn't feel that he needed to call witnesses. He just felt like because he's Donald Trump that he's going to get off. Well, the result is he was convicted of 34 felony charges, and as you've said, that will stay on his record forever. Forever, he will go down in history as the felony ex-president.
Well, let me ask this question, though, ladies. Can I ask this question? And and forgive me, Bernadette. Think about this, and I want you to chime in on this too, with the history of voter suppression. In some or most states, you can't even run. The political parties will keep you. Both political parties consider, they say, as their standard, that if you've been convicted of a felony, you can't even run. Now, here in, I don't know how it is in New York City or where you are, Wisdom. It's amazing to me that it seems like maybe they're going to make some kind of an exception because this guy is running for president. But I know that there are in some states you cannot run any political office for dog catcher or any other position if you got that X on your back. So do you think that this is going to make a difference? Do you think that the various Republican led houses of representatives will change their regulations and their laws just to fit Mr. Trump? Or do you think that he will be thrown off of some of those ballots?
No, I think he's going to be thrown off some of the ballots. Go ahead, Bernadette.
The truth of the matter is he's not going to be thrown off of the balance. They try to get him off of the balance in Colorado, and the Supreme Court voted, against it. What's going to happen is the truth of the matter is you have to remember that states have their own laws. The title of president, the position of president, the Constitution does not state anything about a corrupt, criminal person running for president will be not allowed to run if they have these kind of charges. It's not in the Constitution. So with every other position, every title, every political position, it's determined by the state, with the exception of the president of the United States. So,
and I think that there's a catch-22 in there also. It doesn't directly say, I haven't found in any language recently that someone that's convicted of a crime, of felony crime, can not participate. But they said that you have to be, this is where they get you at, that when certain persons do commit criminal offenses that measure up to a felony, that their voting rights, different states says, we'll take your voting rights from you, and you have to get your voting rights restored. I don't know if you can move to a certain place and have a felony conviction and get your voting rights from something like that.
Yes, James. In Florida, in the state of Florida, the governor, DeSantis, stated that although the convicted felon, Donald J. Trump, cannot vote in New York State, he will allow him to vote in the state of Florida. So the governors can come up with whatever rules they want to come up with.
I think
Okay.
that's part of the challenge is that a lot of this is unprecedented. And because it hasn't been done before, because it's not explicitly stated in the Constitution, or if it is in the Constitution, it's so vague that you can kind of create your own meaning. I think Donald Trump has been able to get away with some things that other people have not been able to get away with. And then the country has a hard time responding because this has never been done before. So because it's never been done before,
Yeah.
that means that we'll allow it. But I believe that allowances are being made for him and for certain and for the Republican Party. I don't believe that the Democratic Party could get away with some of the things that the Republican Party and representatives and Donald Trump has been able to get away with. You
Yeah.
know, so
Oh, they
Wow.
wouldn't.
Well,
They
we're going to
it's
we're
a
going to
double,
dig into. Oh, okay. Go ahead, Bernadette. What you say now?
it's a double standard, and you have to
Yes.
understand the federal government is one level of government, and the state is another level. The federal government, the Supreme Court, and the other courts in the federal government, they follow what's in the Constitution. And our forefathers back then never did they think that there would be a corrupt president.
Right.
They never thought that. And because
Wow.
it's never done, there's so much unknown. There's no precedents. And
Wow.
regarding the Republican Party, they have no respect for the Democratic Party or any other party. They feel that it's no way or no way. If
Well,
it's not
there are
their,
a lot. There are a lot of Republicans that do not agree with the former president. I know that there are some people that have formed a political action group by the name of the Lincoln Project, and they've really been working on
yes,
getting the word out to those conservative Republicans, or those Republicans that need an alternative, and really informing them that, listen, this is a dangerous precedent that has been set in our country, that this person has a likelihood, a shot, at least he has a shot at regaining that seat again. We're going to do some housekeeping right quick. We want our guests just to hang on a little bit. I'd like to remind you that you're listening to WKRA 92.7 FM on your dial. This is the Man on the Street program with James Mack and my wonderful, wonderful guest, Wisdom's daughter, who has come in and rendered her time to fill in and to fill in the blanks on along the way, and our very special guest, Miss Bernadette Bradford, who has a resident of the great state of New York. Very, very, as you all know, she's very, 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 very passionate about what she believes in. And we also, like we said before, it's not about your political affiliation or what you feel personally that will be thrown to the side. We all have an opinion, but we'd like to get an understanding and make sure that as we inform you about these things, that we're not pinning any labels or separating anything. We're all Americans. We just have a difference of opinion. But this verdict of these 34 counts that this former president, and possibly if voters change their mind, they could possibly put him back into office. And not only are we going to be talking about this today, but we're going to extend it sometime during this week again on this great show. This is our inaugural show. We hope that those of you that are listening will enjoy. And don't forget about us every day, Monday through Friday, from 1 to 2 p.m. on this very station and on our various platforms that we're streaming from. And once again, as we're going forth, I'm just happy to be in the company of such great and informed and passionate women. There's nothing wrong with a woman in power. It's nothing wrong with a woman having an opinion. And I'm very liberal and open-minded. For those of you that may not be open-minded, I can't help that fact, but I am just happy to be surrounded around great people that have a knowledge of the events and also very passionate about what they feel about what's really going on in our country and the crisis that we're up against. So in our last few minutes, ladies, Wisdom, you can give your thoughts, or you can come out with any comments that you may have on this topic. And you too, Bernadette, as we go forward.
Sure. I just wanted to thank Bernadette Bedford for coming up and for, sharing her thoughts and sharing, some of her knowledge and just kind of letting us know what's been happening back in New York. It's all about information. I think people need to be able to make an informed decision and inspiration. So we just have to wait and see what's going to happen. And to find out what this means, I believe the sentencing will be on July 11th. So certainly, well, I expect that we'll be covering that. And just want people to be well informed so that they can make their own decision and understand that we're putting someone in a position of power who has the ability to uplift this country or to tear it down. And we just want to be mindful of the person and persons that we're putting into power and into office. So, and James, thanks so much for having me on. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to share some of my thoughts.
I just wanted to add, in terms of Republicans that are not supporting the convicted felon, Donald J. Trump, many of them are afraid to come forward because, as you know, the MAGA sector of the Republican Party have been threatening people's lives, their families, and what have you. A lot of Republican politicians have left office and are remaining quiet because they are in fear of their lives. That's one thing. The other thing I just want to bring to your attention, when you talked about when Donald Trump was young and his father, they owned apartment buildings and they refused to rent to Blacks. Not all of the people were poor. One specific incident occurred with an RN who tried to rent an apartment in one of their buildings located in Brooklyn. And she was refused an apartment, even though it was listed as apartments available. So she got one of her white colleagues to apply for an apartment, and she was granted. And so it was taken to court. It was a class action suit that was handled in the federal government, by the federal government, and his father and him were fined big monies. That's one incident. The other incident occurred involving 5 young teenagers who were used to.
Is that the Central Park 5?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And the convicted felon.
He has so much up his sleeve. He's had so much up his sleeve. He's just really I don't know. It's interesting because when you look at his history and his history being in your state of what he's been doing, and even his business practices, the way that he was, the people that lost jobs, the sloppy construction workers, and all those other things leading up to where we are today, that this person could potentially be our president again. Listen, we're when we're having fun and when you're really deep into a conversation, there's not enough time to expand further. Once again, I'd like to thank Bernadette. Forgive me, I didn't mean to talk over you or hit you like that. But no. Bernadette, you're going to come back. I know you are. Wisdom, I hope that you will come back again. We got a lot of work to do and a lot of information to give our audience about this topic and many others. Once again, this is the Your Man on the Street show with James Mack, and I'm happy that we have this opportunity to come together. Wisdom, you're a jewel, and to all of our listeners that are listening to WKRA 92.7 on your FM dial, I want to thank you for the warm welcome of the staff and all of the members and those that are other personalities that have shouted out to us. We have just an hour and we're just happy, and I just want to encourage you to support us. We're here for you. And as we continue and go along with our programming and coming to you each and every day. We're going to continue to bring you the finest of information and inspiration, and also to bring on people that have their various opinions. And you have an opinion too. Join us on this radio station between 1 and 2 p.m. and you'll be able to enjoy what we've been enjoying. So, Wisdom, you got the last word.
Certainly. Well, just want to let everyone know, if you would like to become a sponsor on the show, you can go to www.thechange927.com and you can sign up to be a sponsor. If you have a business, if you have an organization that would like to sponsor the show, we will greatly appreciate it. And
Yes.
That's it. Stay tuned. There will be more to come on the Donald Trump story, and we hope you will continue to tune in and enjoy the show.
Enjoy your day and enjoy yourself too. And to all of our listeners, stand by for our regular scheduled programs that are going to be coming up. Keep your dial tuned to WKRA 92.7 FM, The Change. And we'll be back on tomorrow with another interesting discussion of maybe the current events. We might tag along with another little bit of what's going on with Mr. Trump. Who knows? But we are so grateful to be a part of your day. Enjoy your day and love on somebody.